Level-headed customer service. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling about a refund for your meditation app, if that's alright?
Wait, Nick? Is that you? Dude, you can't keep calling me at work. It's so weird. I don't understand how you can mess up by...
Go to the Poconos and seek out the Ninja Master Copernicus. A great evil is returned, and he will gift you a game that can teach you the...
Hey, do you think you could take this somewhere else? I'm sort of in the middle of something over here.
No! Because a great evil is returned and the world is in grave danger.
Hey, do I look like I'm even remotely ready for some sort of magical mystery tour with ninjas in it?
But the spirits, they've chosen you.
Spirits, huh? No doubt the kind you get out of a cheap Ouija board. Look, whatever you're trying to sell to me, mystical talking cat person, I ain't buying it.
Look, Dick, you're gonna beat this game and you're gonna like it. Then, you're gonna fight ninjas and you're gonna like it. Or I'm gonna beat you up and send more ninjas after you. Capiche?
Yeah, capiche, man.
Great, so get off the phone with that meditation lady you have a crush on and get to work.
Oh, you have a crush on me?
All right, Nick, no need to freak out. The love of your life just found out that you have a crush on her, you're probably having an allergic reaction from the giant cat that spilled the beans in the first place, and you now have to host a retro game review. Just play it off like you meant for all of that to happen and hope for the best.
Quirky, ain't it?
Released in 1991 for the SNES, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja is an action-adventure game by Konami. The game, which is part of the Ganbare Goemon series from Japan, is a lighthearted romp about ninjas, evil, and cash. Lots and lots of cash. In it, Kid Ying and Dr. Yang, as they're known in every version of the game's international release, are sent on a comedic adventure through Japan to rescue Princess Yuki after she's been kidnapped. The game is known for combining top-down, sorta action RPG, but also sorta beat-em-up gameplay with side-scrolling platforming challenges and boss battles. It's also known for having a relatively light tone and general sense of humor that's somewhat in line with what one may expect from some of Japan's more popular gag mangas from the era. Upon its release, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja received almost universal critical acclaim, repeatedly landing scores in the 9 out of 10 range. It's also since worked its way up to having the reputation of being one of the SNES's best titles, despite not really finding a large audience outside of Japan.
Prior to last year, I had never actually heard of this game before, though that was quickly changed after a subscriber recommended this game to me based off of its humor and gameplay. Unfortunately though, as much as I'd love to give the guy who recommended this game some credit for that recommendation, I can't, because I can't find the comment anymore. So yeah, that's on me, I'm sorry dude. Anyway, after I looked into the game a bit and found out how well respected it was amongst retro gamers, I got really excited to give it a shot and knew that I had to review it someday. While the series never really found its footing outside of Japan, it's well beloved by fans of the series, and has even gone on to be spun off into formats such as mangas, OVAs, and even got a North American dub for its anime adaptation.
But does it hold up? Because while it's a loved and well-received game, that doesn't necessarily mean that newcomers to the franchise will automatically like what they see. And while it offers a variety of gameplay styles and has a fun and approachable sense of humor about its subject matter, those qualities may not appeal to people who weren't around at the time of its original release and may not be the hook needed to get them interested in the game. Before we continue though, a quick question of the day. What's a game that you loved growing up that not many people seem to talk about anymore? Whether it's a popular game that sort of faded into obscurity or something people never gave an honest shot to begin with, I'd love to hear your answer over in the comments. And if you're new here and are enjoying what you see so far, feel free to subscribe to the channel and stuff so that you can check out all the other videos I'll be putting out in the future. And with that out of the way, on with the video. Alright, so The Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Right off the bat, it hits you with a pretty aesthetically pleasing title screen, full of lots of soft pastels and an equally aesthetically pleasing confirmation jingle.
Ooh, that's the good stuff. I think I actually cracked my neck doing that.
Upon booting up the game, we're thrown into a cutscene that's complete with some extremely detailed sprites alongside some pretty in-your-face applications of the Super Nintendo's scaling and rotation abilities. As a title released within the first year of the SNES's Japanese release, it's a pretty nice touch and shows off what the 16-bit console is capable of through Mode 7. The opening cutscene, along with the other ones sprinkled throughout the game, are done pretty well, don't outstay their welcome, and are played for laughs thanks to how meta and self-aware they can be. About a minute into things, you'll get to start playing the game and exploring the first town you'll visit on your adventure. Here, you'll be greeted by the first of the Legend of the Mystical Ninja's several gameplay styles, which kinda reminds me of how a beat-em-up plays due to its camera angle. While it's probably not the most accurate descriptor of this gameplay style, for the sake of clarity in this review, I'll be referring to these sections as either overworld or beat-em-up stages. Anyway, you can move from left to right and wallop on villagers just trying to get through their day. You know, swordsmen, spearmen, and fishermen, pick up their cash and spend it on items, as well as these cats that can upgrade your weapon to one of two upgraded variants, with the most effective of the three being a sorta spiked yo-yo of sorts.
Which is a creative decision that games from the late 80s and early 90s really seemed to be into. Between Earthbound, Star Tropics, and The Legend of the Mystical Ninja, it wouldn't have been that shocking for a kid to assume that a yo-yo was a deadly weapon back in the day.
Like, kids would probably think they could win a duel if they were the guy that brought a Duncan to a gunfight. In conjunction to the different weapons at your disposal, you'll also be able to enter shops in order to buy some goodies like health, extra lives, or types of armor that can improve some of your stats. Because of it, these sections of The Legend of the Mystical Ninja actually feel more like an action RPG than it does a normal action game, as you're encouraged to upgrade your character and manage your funds in the process. It's honestly a fairly nice touch that's mostly optional for the player and allows them to tailor their gameplay experience, and by proxy its difficulty, to their liking. As far as the combat itself goes, it's all relatively par for the course.
Nice par!
Like I mentioned earlier, defeating enemies can lead to them either dropping a cat that you can use to power up your weapon, which I think makes sense, I don't know, I'm allergic, or money that can be used in shops or straight up get flung at enemies as a projectile. Truth be told, I love that your character's projectile attack involves deciding whether or not you're comfortable losing some of your money. It's a nifty way to add some stakes to your decisions, as projectiles are a really useful way to stay alive when you're low on health, but can also simultaneously prevent you from healing up to begin with. There's also just something hilarious about tripping and killing someone with a sword or a weapon of some kind by throwing a spare nickel at him. Anyway, the game also tries to keep you from blindly killing everyone in sight by including civilians in these sections that you'll need to avoid attacking, as hurting them results in you losing money. Oh, and you can also save them from opponents by walking into them for a nice little cash bonus. Overall, it's a neat way to add some depth and consequences to your actions that I really appreciate.
It's also awesome because it allows me to confidently say that The Legend of the Mystical Ninja is against elder abuse.
Which, you know, is bad. I also dug the fact that this game offers a bit of exploration by allowing you to enter any of the buildings you pass in these sections, and how aside from the aforementioned shops, they can house anything from some playful dialogue like a fourth wall break about the Konami code, a dojo that can teach you a special move that's specific to the level you're in, or mini games to help you rack up some cash. And these mini-games are pretty fun and include stuff like your basic memory game, a lottery, or a shockingly fun version of Whack-A-Mole that constantly had me quoting one of my favorite Dr. Cox jokes from Scrubs.
Harry, it's over.
Oh, and as if that weren't enough, you could even straight up play Gradius in one of the levels. On the other side of things are the game's flatter side-scrolling sections, which play a lot more like a platformer. While your basic abilities are more or less one-to-one with what they were in the overworld-style areas, the second half of most of the game's levels shift into a more linear structure, making your way downtown to the end of the stage and fighting a boss. Even though these stages don't do anything too crazy on a mechanical level, they're a slick perversion of the Legend of the Mystical Ninja's standard gameplay and offer some much needed variety to keep things from growing too stale, without straying too far from the game's general formula to make things jarring at the same time. These sections are especially nice when they go out of their way to make use of some of the advantages that the SNES's hardware had over its competition at the time, through the inclusion of things like spinning 3D pillars, layered platforming challenges, and some of the console's scaling and rotation abilities. The inclusion of these challenges really helps sell a secondary gameplay style to the player due to how they may not have been as easily executable in the game's more beat-em-up oriented levels. Don't get me wrong though, as I wouldn't exactly call these sections perfect. For starters, those positive qualities I mentioned just a second ago are nice and all, but they can sometimes get in the way of a good time for the player. For example, in one of the levels you're expected to jump between the foreground and background to get to a door. This is all well and fine in theory, but it can prove to be a bit frustrating in execution due to enemies that tend to respawn whenever the camera scrolls past their spawn point and the inclusion of some admittedly well-drawn foreground elements. What I'm trying to get at is that, in motion, it looks great and really sells an illusion of depth within the level, but it also kinda hinders your visibility in the process and can lead to some cheap feeling deaths. Which brings me to my next point.
Let's talk about death.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You? Right there? Yeah, you're gonna die.
That one's in real life.
While I wouldn't necessarily call The Legend of the Mystical Ninja an extremely hard game, you'll probably end up dying a few times while playing through it. Whether it's backtracking to pick up some items from a store, getting lost in the overworld sections despite their relative linearity, or just, dying, death is all but an inevitability. And while that's certainly not an issue, the game is somewhat inconsistent in how it handles death. Essentially, dying in an overworld section leads to you respawning wherever you are defeated, while the platforming sections rely on a checkpoint system. And this honestly may come across as nitpicking on my part, and I'm genuinely sorry if it does, but I can't help but feel like there's something unnecessarily complicated about that. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a bad thing per se, but the general lack of consistency there feels a bit unnecessary and unintuitive in its execution. It's just an extra thing for the player to learn on their journey that probably doesn't need to be there to begin with. Granted, I could also just be a bit unamused by this due to how utterly frustrating it is to die during a boss battle and then have to trek through part of the stage again to even get a second shot at things. Speaking of which, I know save states are a bit of a hot topic amongst retro gamers, but if it weren't for the fact that I was playing this game on RetroArch and firing off save states at the beginning of every boss battle, I honestly could have seen myself getting frustrated with this game and giving up on it before getting the chance to fully experience it. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't technically a part of the review, and I don't hold it against the game at all, as that's simply the way game design was back in the day, but I'm genuinely grateful for the sort of quality of life improvements that emulation brings to the table, as it helps make games like this a bit more accessible to a wider audience. At the very least, stuff like save states are harmless enough and allow players to be a bit more mindful of their time and still experience a game without getting frustrated due to pouring countless hours into repeating the same section over and over again.
However, if you're one of those folks that thinks that my using save states to experience this game makes this entire review invalid, all right, let's just agree to disagree and move on from there.
Anyway, while I'd say this game is really fun as a single-player experience, there's also no denying that The Legend of the Mystical Ninja truly shines as a cooperative one. In fact, part of what made me take so long to get around to reviewing this after it was recommended to me was the fact that I wanted to review both its single-player and co-op experience, and that my go-to person to play it with passed away at around the same time I was made aware of this game's existence.
But fear not, because my girlfriend was actually all too pleased to play through this game again with me and to put up with me trying to show off my super sick yo-yo skills.
Hey Sierra, check out my super cool yo-yo! Simply put, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja is a blast to play through with another player to watch your back. While the game is more likely to encounter moments of slowdown when playing in co-op, the game's undeniable charm is all the better with a friend by your side. In fact, I may even put it among the ranks of Contra or a personal favorite of mine, Russian Attack, as far as Konami published co-op games go, due to how easy to pick up but multifaceted its gameplay can be. Plus, you can even give each other piggyback rides, so yeah, game of the year right here. Other than that, it's essentially the same base experience as a single player playthrough. If you can only play this game one way though, I'd definitely recommend it as a co-op caper, though there's also nothing wrong with playing it alone. It just happens to be a game that really benefits from some company. As far as the game's visuals go, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja boasts a wonderfully playful aesthetic that's strong on tiny, cute character designs and paints them against a mishmash of traditional Japanese culture and modern, at least for the 90s, convenience. It's a really fun fusion of styles that comes across as fairly unique, but also somewhat natural in its execution. The game also features some lovely parallax scrolling and layering in many of its environments, as well as makes use of dithering and other retro tricks of the trade to create a dreamy, kinda surreal world for the player to explore. It often feels like no matter where you find yourself here, there's always something going on, and I can't compliment the guys at Konami enough for a job well done. While the art style and aesthetic may not be for everybody, I really enjoyed it and thought that it complemented the game's playful demeanor. For example, look at this guy. He's just vibing, and I totally love it. Each of the game's side-scrolling levels have a relatively distinct look and feel to them that helps them stand out, and at least to some extent, the game's more beat-em-up styled stages also feel at least somewhat distinct in their design too. And either way, while a few of these areas can look a bit too copied and pasted for my own liking at points, it doesn't really get in the way of navigating through them due to the game being fairly linear at its core. Earlier in this review, I mentioned that the game shows off the SNES's Mode 7 scaling and rotation abilities pretty well during its cutscenes, and aside from that, those effects also end up getting used pretty well inside of its levels too. For example, one of the bosses is actually a giant head that squashes and stretches as he floats around the screen, and there's also a stage that has a fun rotation gimmick that reminds me of that Fred Astaire dance scene from Royal Wedding. While there are definitely better looking games on the SNES, I really enjoyed what The Legend of the Mystical Ninja had to offer, and honestly, I still consider it a fairly impressive looking title for something that came out a bit early in the console's lifespan. And the same could probably be said about its music too. Even though I'd say that this game's soundtrack is mostly nothing to write home about, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja still offers a selection of catchy and enjoyable music for its levels that complement its level aesthetics, heightens the action appropriately, and manages to include one of the most satisfying start jingles that I've ever heard.
Okay, yep, it's slicker than lubing up a slip and slide with margarine.
And as if that weren't enough, the game does have a few bangers that I really enjoyed too, such as the headquarters of the Otafu army theme, King Ryuku's secret, and the song Keep an Adventure Log, which I'm convinced is what dopamine sounds like. The game's soundtrack combines traditional Japanese music with late 80s and early 90s pop sensibilities, is equal parts comedic and energizing, and is just an all-around fun listen. Even though I won't be able to remember the vast majority of this game's music in a week or two, I liked what I heard and I saw nothing wrong with it.
So does The Legend of the Mystical Ninja hold up?
The Legend of the Mystical Ninja is a fun, charming co-op adventure that's got some solid action, decent platforming, and enough character to stand out amongst the SNES's massive library of action and platforming games. And by combining elements from a couple of the 16-bit era's best genres, the game manages to stand out even more as being a unique and engaging experience.
Even though the game didn't really find an audience outside of Japan and go on to receive the sort of international support that it perhaps deserved to, I really thought that this game was a ton of fun, and even though most of its installments are Japan exclusives, I totally want to go in and play through a couple of them in the near future, and maybe even check out its manga and anime adaptations while I'm at it. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. Feel free to like the video and leave a comment if you enjoyed what you saw, and feel free to leave an answer to the question of the day over in the comments if you haven't already. On top of that, you're more than welcome to support this channel via donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link that's in the description or pinned comment, and you're more than welcome to check out my social media pages at NichePlays by doing the same thing. And if you aren't sick of my voice yet for whatever reason, you can also listen to my retro movie and TV podcast, Media Obscura, on your favorite podcast player. It's hosted by myself, along with my girlfriend Sierra and my best friend Raekwon. We release episodes every 2 or so weeks, and I like to think it's a lot of fun. So yeah. Bye.